All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everybody. I hope you are having an excellent week and welcome, welcome. Come on in. If you are joining me today, chances are you're interested in legacy giving because I am going to share what started as 3 ways to tap in to the power of legacy giving. I have to tell you, it's been growing all morning because this is a topic that I am really excited about. So if you're just joining us and we haven't met yet, my name is Emma. I'm at 𝗔𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗄𝗂𝘁, and I help fundraisers and nonprofit leaders raise more 5, 6, and 7-figure donations for their amazing mission. So what more important topic to talk about than legacy giving, because there are some extremely significant donations to be had for organizations of every size. So what I'm going to be talking about today, this is really for you as a frontline fundraiser. This is how I come to this topic, is as a frontline fundraiser and not necessarily a technical expert in all the different plan giving vehicles. I'm coming at this as a frontline fundraiser thinking, how can we do more and talk more effectively about legacy giving at our organization with our donors? So I am going to go ahead and get started. Welcome if you're just joining us. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know where you're joining from. Say hello. And if you're catching up on the replay, welcome. I'd love you to use the hashtag replay so I can come back and check in and see all of your questions and ideas here as well. So I actually wanted to do something a bit impromptu now. This is me going off script, which is one of the fun things about doing live video. I wanted to share with you actually a personal story of mine about making a gift in my will to charity. Hello, Carrie. Nice to see you. Carrie is joining us from Halifax. Welcome, welcome, everybody. So I wanted to start off by sharing with you a personal story. I am someone who has included a gift to charity in my will since I very first wrote a will. And I wanted to share with you today an interesting story that happened to me. It was about 10 years ago. Hello, Vanessa, welcome. It was about 10 years ago, and I was actually out for dinner with a colleague. So I was having dinner with a fellow fundraiser, and I had just happened, coincidentally, prior to them joining the organization, to included this organization in my will. So this was an organization, their mission was very close to my heart. And I had already for several years actually had this organization in my will. So we're having this lovely catch-up dinner, not with me as a donor so much, but maybe with me as a colleague, as a fellow fundraiser. And as we were wrapping up, I just got so excited. I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm actually going to tell him that they're in my will. And I'm just thrilled to be able to do this. So I was like, you know, I wanted to share before we wrap up that I've actually included your organization in my will, included a bequest to you in my will. And so I did not get the reaction I had expected. So what happened is that I can only describe the look as panicked. So he sort of, you know, looked really taken aback, and then his eyes started darting around the room. And I had just revealed something that I was very joyful about and I was very excited about. And it was like he was like looking for the exit, and I was like, this is not going well. This is not going well. So we wrapped up the evening on a really awkward note because I think I had taken him aback. He hadn't expected to hear this from me. He wasn't really prepared to say what he needed to say, which was probably like, thank you, that's so generous. We're so honored that you've made this commitment. Instead was just sort of like blanched and panicked. And so I'm sharing this for a reason today. I'm sharing this not because I want to shame anyone. I'm sharing this because I think this is actually quite common for us as fundraisers. And it leads me to my first tip, which is a really important one, is that we often have a lot tied up in our heads about the notion of planned giving. And we really have to get ourselves sorted out on that front before we can expect to be going out and working and talking with donors in a comfortable way, right? So I think the moral of the story for me is, when you scratch the surface, and I want you to think about this as well right now, when you scratch the surface and you're thinking about legacy giving, often what that brings up for folks is like, oh my gosh, it's death and dying. I can't talk to my donors about death and dying, right? Or we just have a lot sort of tied up in that personally, and it's a big mindset piece. And you know, I love talking about mindset if you've joined me on any of these lives before. So I think that's our first order of business as fundraisers, is to really sit down and get our heads in order around this idea of planned giving. It's like, what notions do we have? What fear do we have that may actually be holding us back? Not only from having these conversations proactively, but perhaps even reacting and responding appropriately when we do hear from someone that they've included a gift to our charity in their will. So I have a recommendation for you. It's a pretty simple one. I'm someone who, I love to write, I love to journal. If you like to do this too, I'd say sit down and get this all out of your head. When you're thinking about talking to donors about a gift in their will, for example, what comes up for you? Ooh, it makes me feel awkward because I feel like I'm talking about death, or whatever it is. That's a very common one. We need to just start working through and getting over our fear and discomfort around talking about legacy giving. So I hope you found my experience helpful hearing about, but it was actually very useful for me, because I left that, again, not wanting to shame or blame anyone, but I left that dinner sort of feeling like that was a really important learning experience for me as somebody who had included a gift in my will. It was a very important experience for me to understand, I came to the table in this revelation with a great amount of joy and excitement, and I was met with like discomfort and horror. So it was a very interesting learning experience for me as well, I think. So, and while it's not an official tip, here is one thing for you to think about. I found where things really shifted for me is when I did include a gift in my will to charity. So I just found going through that process and talking about it just increased my comfort level like 100 times, right? And the great thing about something like including a bequest in your will is anyone can do it, because it can be any amount, right? You can do it however you want. So, and having a will is very important for most of us. I'm not here to lecture you about getting a will, but if you do have a will and it's time to update it, I really want you to consider thinking about this, because I guarantee you it is going to improve your legacy fundraising 100%, because it's going to increase your comfort level, and you know, it's just going to make you more comfortable talking about it. In fact, it even enabled me, I remember at the very beginning, to go to the board of directors at the small shop I was working at the time, and say, you know, I'm someone who has included a gift in my will to charity at that time, to that organization. And I said, I want to encourage you to think about it as well. And if you already have, I'd love to hear from you, because, you know, we'd love to include your story. We'd love to share your story to inspire others to think about making the same commitment. So think about that for yourself as well. I'm telling you, completely off my outline here. So let me get back to what I actually wanted to talk about. But I got all inspired today because I was thinking about this story and I was remembering this experience. I'm just going to take a sip of my water. I was remembering this experience and I thought it's just such a useful and important learning experience. So let me get to the official outline of what I wanted to share with you today, to start with something totally related with what we've talked about already, which my number one tip is to make sure you're really focusing in on the type of gift that makes up basically 95% of planned or legacy giving. And that is, as I've been talking about, gifts in wills, right? Vast majority of planned gifts are gifts in wills. So for you as a frontline fundraiser, I want to make sure you're not holding yourself back, because what I see a lot of fundraisers doing is worrying about not being a technical expert in all the different planned giving vehicles. So what I really want to recommend to you is just stay focused in your conversations, in your communications, when you're talking about this on your website with your donors. Just stay focused first and foremost on talking about gifts and wills. Makes sense, right? I mean, listen, if you are somebody who is really interested in growing your planned gift expertise, absolutely, I recommend like go for it, learn, explore. There are some great resources from, for example, here in Canada, the Canadian Association of Gift Planners. So go ahead and continue that professional development if this is something you really want to dive into, but do not let it hold you back if you're not an expert in all of the different planned giving vehicles. I have been fundraising for 25 years, a good part of that doing major gift fundraising, and I am not a technical expert in all the different planned giving vehicles. And I can tell you what would happen when I spoke with a donor and perhaps they were interested, you know, in a less common vehicle. I would say, that is so wonderful to hear. You know what? Let me go talk to my colleague. I'm going to get back to you right away on that, because, you know, I'm going to find out more from my colleague who's an expert in this area, and then I'm going to reconnect with you. So it's okay in general. This is also a really interesting idea for a lot of people. It's okay in general to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that right now, but I'm going to go find out, and I'm going to get right back to you by end of day tomorrow with an answer for you. So I really want to encourage you, think about focusing in on that type of gift that makes up 95% of legacy giving, and that is gifts in wills. Okay, I'm just checking in, see a few questions here. Is there a minimum amount of knowledge, Sharon is asking, you would recommend before adding it as a new way of giving on the website? Or at least, well, you know what, that actually goes back to my tip. I would say I would really not necessarily, depends on your organization, go the route of including a great laundry list of all the different technical options on your website. This leads beautifully into my next tip. So let me go there as well, because then it may become a little more apparent why. So I would say, no, do not wait until you start talking about gifts and wills. Do not wait until you've established a certain amount of expertise. You know, I would say start talking about them right away, because I think I see too many people get held back by needing to establish a very, very significant amount of expertise. Of course, I'm a lifelong learner. I really encourage you to continue learning, continue taking professional development, but don't wait until you're like, now I know everything and now I can do it, because chances are that day is not going to come. That's totally a mindset thing as well. It's a mindset piece where you're always thinking, I think, especially when it comes to more technical fundraising like planned giving, the brain can have a way of always saying, you're not quite ready, you don't know everything, you need to learn more. And that can really hold us back in our fundraising, right? So that's what I would recommend, is just sort of start edging into it, start talking about it. That leads really nicely into my second tip. And that is, make sure you're using language that your donor understands. We have a tendency, I think, especially around planned giving, but fundraising and nonprofits in general, we can really have a tendency to use a lot of jargon, right? Use a lot of technical jargon. And here is the interesting thing. If you're familiar with Dr. Russell James, if you're not familiar with him, get familiar, because he's a professor at University of Texas, I believe. Forgive me if that is incorrect. But he has done some amazing research around legacy gifts. So this is all research-based findings. And what he found in some recent research is that, quite frankly, this is my paraphrasing, technical jargon turns donors off. And he studied this and had a look at comparing, and it's a fascinating slide deck. I'll actually get, we'll actually add the link to this once we get the recording up. So come back if you want to check out that resource, or you can also just Google Dr. Russell James. But what he found was, anytime you're using the extremely technical jargon, it tends to depress charitable interest, as he says. Even something as simple as talking about a bequest gift in your will versus talking about a simple gift in your will, depressed interest, charitable interest in donors. Fascinating, right? Fascinating. I would never have thought that, talking about a bequest, that would actually depress interest, but it does, right? And that is, that's some good and really strong research. So generally speaking, and he looked at the kind of jargon that may be used commonly in planned giving, like charitable gift annuity, so on and so forth. The more simply that you describe this, so if you say gift instead of bequest, the greater increase in charitable interest, if that makes sense. So really good stuff. Make sure that you're not using too much technical or legal jargon, because we really have a tendency to do this in plan giving, and talk about this in plain language and use language that your donor understands. Okay. So another tip I have for you from our friend, Dr. Russell James. I love Russell James, so definitely make sure that you are following him and Google him if you want more resources. And that is, tell the stories of living bequest pledgers. All right. This apparently, according to Dr. James, is probably the single most important message that you can share to influence donors to consider leaving or including your organization in their will. And he looked very specifically at a couple of things. He looked at sharing all sorts of different stories, including stories of donors who had passed away, so their bequest had been realized, and donors who were living, who had pledged a bequest or pledged a gift in their will. And what he found was, by far and away, the most effective story to share, and probably one of the most impactful message to share, is a story of someone who is already living, their personal story of why they chose to include a gift to charity in their will. So here's the beauty of that. I love it because A, we know how powerful great storytelling is for our fundraising. B, this is something that organizations of every size can implement. In fact, before I knew about this research, it was just beginner's luck probably. It was one of the things that I had done in the very small shop that I worked at, is that I had heard from a donor and said, oh, you know, I've included you in my will. And I said, you know what, I'd actually love to share your story with other donors and to inspire other donors to make this kind of generous commitment as well. And she was totally game. She was all for it. And in fact, sent in like this beautiful, she loved dogs, so she sent in this beautiful picture of her and her dogs. And she shared her personal story about why the mission and the cause was so important for her, and her personal experience with it, and why she had made this choice to make a bequest. So I accidentally stumbled on that. Like I said, beginner's luck, very early on. And in fact, we had included that, I think, in a welcome package that went out to new donors. So it was really effective and something we definitely continued to do. So think about that, because that is the absolute beauty. You know, if you hear from someone who has included you in their will, what a wonderful way, to recognize them and engage them and include them. If it's something they're interested in, not everybody is, but many people love sharing their stories, right? So it's human nature. What a great way, A, to engage the donor, but B, also to inspire other donors. You know, sometimes for donors, it's the simple fact is like, oh, I had actually never thought of this an option to support this charity that I care a great deal about, right? So I think that's, you know, a super important message for you to share. And again, very easy for organizations to do, small, medium, or large. Make sure you're sharing those stories. So fabulous. Hello, Tamisha. It's so nice to see you joining us. So yeah, so that is most of what I wanted to cover today. I will add in a final thing, which is, you know, don't be overwhelmed by this, especially if you are a small shop. One great way to introduce this and start talking about it again is just to, you know, taking a drip marketing approach is just incorporating messaging into your existing communication vehicles. Again, this is what we did at our small shop. So we would tell a story of a bequest pledger in the annual report. We did it in our welcome package. We would, you know, maybe mention it in our newsletters. So we always made sure that we were including mention of legacy giving in, or specifically gifts in wills, in all of our communications to donors. Now, one area a bit in contention, you know, that you may or may not like to re-examine is this common practice of actually asking for donors to let you know if they've included you in their will on your direct mail reply forms. The only reason for that is this, is many direct marketing experts, including my friends at Agents of Good, I think I first heard this from John Lett, John talks about how actually making too many asks, having too many calls to action on in your direct mail can actually suppress response. So you might want to think about reevaluating that. I think it's, again, still very useful to talk about it in all your different vehicles, but maybe stick with the communication vehicles if you are someone who really wants to get that response back in your direct marketing, because all is not lost, right? It's like you can always go back out to folks afterwards. So many amazing ways to do that, including surveys, which are so easy to do digitally now. Again, all these great affordable platforms that are equally accessible to small, medium, and large shops. You can do surveys, you can do phone campaigns, all sorts of ways to go out there and sort of be a little, and mail, of course. How could I forget mail? One of the most effective ways to promote gifts and wills. But thinking about, for example, doing a dedicated letter as opposed to, maybe including too many calls to action on your one direct mail form. So just thought I'd throw that in there. If you are an organization that does do direct mail, sharing a bit of wisdom from my colleagues. Oh my goodness, and I almost forgot one of the most important things I wanted to share with you, and this is special for my Canadian colleagues, and I am just going to do a quick look here to make sure I've got all the information right. I want to make sure that you know about Willpower, okay? It's a campaign that is being run by the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, and I'm not officially associated with this, but I just think it's a great idea. I have to tell everybody about it. So you can find that on the CAGP website. It's called Willpower, but essentially it is an amazing campaign really to encourage folks to include a gift in their will. They have an incredible goal. They basically want to make gifts and wills the social norm, and their goal is to inspire $40 billion of gifts to charity by 2030. I love that. Is a big, hairy, audacious goal. This is wonderful. So I want you to look this up. What this is basically is a wonderful opportunity for you to leverage this expertise. They've put together all sorts of different marketing materials that you can use. Let me come back to you here. There we are. All sorts of different marketing opportunities that you can use okay, there we are. Sorry, I have way too many windows open. And different collateral that you can actually adapt to use within your organization. So it's largely digitally based, which again makes it so wonderful and accessible. So you have things like social media posts, messaging, really incredible campaign for you to look into. I mentioned this here because, thank you, Shanna. Without Shanna, what would I do? I would not be organized at all. Shanna just shared the website, which is 𝘃𝗶𝗁𝗂. I mentioned this specifically as well today because they've got a big deadline coming up. If you want to look into being part of the campaign this year and getting access, to this wonderful opportunity to get collateral that's already prepared for you, and also to really be part of like their broad national marketing campaign, you can do so by the end of May. I think the deadline is the end of May for the Willpower campaign. And another great thing about it is they've got a sliding fee scale. So this is something, the price to be involved is basically dependent upon how much money you raise. So that means it is accessible for smaller shops as well. So I really want to encourage you to check it out if you're not familiar with Willpower. Great campaign and a wonderful opportunity for you to actually get some, be part of something that can help you as an organization reach out to your donors and really encourage them to think about gifts and wills. And it's a wonderful opportunity for small, medium, and large shops alike. So do check this out. They have a lot of great information at willpower.ca. Their deadline is coming up to take part in this year's campaign at the end of May. So don't delay in checking that out. So, and that is the wonderful Lori Fox and team. And Lori was actually on this, on one of these live videos with me a while back. She spoke much more articulately about the campaign than I just did. But I just wanted to send you in that direction because I think it's a great opportunity. And Let's face it, one of the things actually I learned from Lori is one of the groups that we really need to start paying attention to when we're thinking about legacy gifts are Gen X, right here, right? There you go, relates perhaps back to my initial story. So really interesting that we're starting to do a lot more, communicating on digital platforms around gifts and wills, right? Because we are actually wanting to connect with this generation of donors who are really starting to think about this as an important giving opportunity for them, and as an important legacy for them as well. So that is it. I am going to wrap up because I realize I've just talked for 25 minutes, which is a bit longer than I originally planned. I hope you found this helpful. I really do encourage you to go check that out. So a couple of resources for you. Dr. Russell James and his wonderful research around, around very specific and actionable tactics and ideas that you can use with your donors. So do check out Dr. Russell James, as well as the willpower.ca website if you're based in Canada. I'm sorry if you're not based in Canada, but I know there's something similar in the UK as well. And I wonder if there's anything similar in the US. If you're US based, you'll have to let me know, drop it below. But I hope you have found this helpful, my friends. And if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to go ahead and drop them below. And I'm so happy to have been able to join you today to talk about this. One of my absolute favorite topics is, leaving a legacy, because it's something I think we all think about. All right, I am going to wrap up. I think I caught all the questions. If I didn't, go ahead. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Tamisha. Thanks, everyone who joined us. And I will look forward to seeing you again next time. I hope you have a great rest of your week. For those of you who are going into the long weekend, enjoy, unplug. I hope you get a chance to relax. All right, my friends, I'll talk to you soon.